Republican Congressman David Jolly. He introduced a gun compromise bill just yesterday. So, Congressman, welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. Good to be with you.
Congressman Yarmouth, let me just begin with you. I know you were part of the sit-in, and I know it's tricky because apparently when you walk out, you may not be able to rejoin them. So thank you for taking a minute with me. Can you just, whose idea was this to actually sit down in the well?
Well, it started actually on Monday night. John Larson of Connecticut, Catherine Clark from Massachusetts, and John Lewis started reaching out to members they thought might want to participate. And then we actually had a meeting last night to kind of play out the scenario and figure out the logistics. So it's pretty much an organic thing. This morning in our Democratic caucus meeting, Leader Pelosi talked about what we were doing and gave her implicit blessing to it, and that encouraged a lot of other members to join in. So at one point, I think we probably had about 70, 75 Democrats sitting and standing in the well of the House, and with the passion that you heard from John Lewis, that was reflected throughout the caucus. So we're prepared to be there for the duration. We go on break supposedly Friday afternoon for next week, and we're prepared to do this until Friday, and that's the derivation of the no bill, no break chant.
So, all right, so you're prepared to continue sitting. Dozens have joined it, as you pointed out. Congressman Jolly, before we get to the substance, and I think you two sort of are on the same page here, what do you, just as a Republican, make of what's happening in the well?
So, Brooke, I don't question the conviction of my Democratic colleagues. I'm not sure I agree with their tactics. I will tell you we have to be very careful. You know, I left Florida after Orlando, a state that was united in mourning, and quickly came to a Congress divided. It's not helpful on either side of the aisle to cast blame, to yell shame, to accuse others of being complicit in mass shootings in American history. I don't know that I agree with the Democratic tactics, but I'll tell you, I'm somebody who says, let's open the floor of the House and have the debate. You know, I gave a speech this morning as soon as we opened, before the Democratic sit-in, and I said, here's why I disagree with the Democratic proposal. Here's what I've offered that would provide no fly, no buy, but also due process and Second Amendment protections for law-abiding citizens. If that's not the answer, help me improve it. Let's get to a consensus here. My fear is the politics of blame play well in November, and the architects of failure see political currency in this in November. The tone is important. Let's work together on both sides of the aisle. No fly, no buy, but protect the Second Amendment and due process.
But let me just stop you a minute back. You know, you don't agree with the tactics. We know what's happening on the Senate side. We know that nothing's really happened. We're waiting, you know, for the Susan Collins measure to be introduced. On your side, though, nothing's happened, especially in the wake of Orlando. I was down there as well. So what's wrong with being a little dramatic?
So, Brooke, inaction is wrong, which is why, as a Republican, I've introduced a compromise bill, H.R. 5544, that says no fly, no buy, but you're entitled to a due process hearing within 30 days if you're declined at the purchase of a firearm. I think we can get there. You know, the irony here, Brooke, is if we just do our job, here's the most scandalous part of all. This is easy. This is actually easy. We can solve this. This is nothing more than politics. We wouldn't condone this type of behavior in elementary school kids.
How is this easy, though, with all due respect, Congressman? How is this easy? Nothing's happened.
You know,
jump in.
The solution is easy. The solution's easy because every American agrees if you're on a watch list, you shouldn't be able to buy a gun. But every American agrees if you're wrongly on the list, you should be entitled to due process. We can do that. I beg my Democratic colleagues to put due process in their proposal. It would get support. I beg my Republican colleagues, let's do something. Let's act in the wake of Orlando. Let's not play politics with this. It's heartbreaking. And so I'm saying, look, I don't agree with the tactics, but if it forces a discussion, a debate on the House floor, so be it. Let's have that debate. I look forward to it.
Congressman Yarmouth, jump in, and feel free to talk amongst yourselves, by the way.
Here's the difference. In the Senate book, they have a filibuster. They can force a cloture vote. If they get 60 votes in the end debate, they can bring something to the floor. We have nothing except what's called a discharge petition, which you have to get 218 votes to force something to come to the floor. Well, we only have 188 Democrats, and we probably would get a handful of Republicans to agree to, but we could never get 218. So we have limited leverage to force votes on important measures. This is very important. The American people want us to take action. They don't want us to just have moments of silence after every one of these unspeakable tragedies. So I think David's right. it is a relatively easy fix, and I think it would be a relatively easy debate. That's all we're saying. Let's have the debate, let's have a vote, and let the will of the Congress be done.
And if I might add, look, the facts matter here. Here's my opposition, and it's on constitutional conviction, not politics. If you're currently one of the 8 or 9 classes prohibited from purchasing a firearm, it's post-adjudication. You've been found guilty of a violent crime. You've been adjudicated to have a mental health challenge, dishonorably discharged by the armed services. The watch list has no adjudication to it. Now, we can agree if you're on the list and a potential threat, you shouldn't be able to buy a gun. But if you're wrongfully on that, let's provide due process. So the discharge petition, my concern is it simply brings up the failed measure of the last 2 years the Democrats have offered, and it doesn't do anything to bring folks like myself over to say, okay, I can support this because it provides due process and protects the Second Amendment. Let's work together on this, and that's what we're begging.
There's an added benefit to this, too. There are a lot of people who are on the no-fly list who don't know they're on it.
That's
They
right.
might go out
That's
try to buy a gun and say, no, you can't, and then they can have the adjudication.
That's right.
The day
And
it starts.
listen, my
right.
bill doesn't provide notification when you're on the list. It lets law enforcement investigate. But if you're denied a Second Amendment right, you're notified.
I don't know if this is the moment that much of the nation has been waiting for, but this is certainly
Let's
a
work together.
moment.
Okay,
Noted.
right.
Gentlemen, I
right,
appreciate both of you. Thank you so much, Congressman Yarmouth and Jolly. Thank you.
you,
We're
Brooke.
keeping our eyes on those pictures on Capitol Hill. Thank you both. And from